welcome to my channel. My name is Mickelle. I'm a digital nomad and content creator. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit why I would never live in Bali and some things that I encountered that I didn't really expect and what no one was really telling me about Bali online. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I had the chance to visit Bali for a month this year in February, and going into it, I was excited. Having traveled for the last 3 years, I had heard amazing things about Bali. Being a digital nomad, I thought this was going to be my mecca. I'm also a yoga teacher, so I had heard just amazing things about the spiritual space there and kind of looked at it as an opportunity to maybe make it my base. However, shortly after arriving, I experienced some things that no one on Instagram or no one on YouTube was really sharing with the rest of the world. And the first one was getting around. Now, you may have seen a couple meme videos about the traffic situation in Bali, but when it comes to Canggu, getting around is a mission. So there is 1-lane roads, and basically you have to take a scooter, and there's almost never really sidewalks. And when you're on the scooter, there is about usually 20 bikes or so around you. Now, what I encountered there was just serious traffic. I think this is something that could be fixed if there was a bit more roads or infrastructure in Bali. However, that was not really the case. So for example, for me to go 25 kilometers to a concert in a car, it took me 3.5 hours. So this was something that I didn't really like. I also experienced at times to go just 2 kilometers, it took me an hour if it was like around 4 or 5 p.m., as well as seeing a lot of different bike crashes and just not feeling like I could really move around as I want. And to just even go 10 minutes could take me quite a while to get there. So this was definitely a negative and something that I wasn't a big fan of. Also, because there is so many people in Bali, it is so busy. Anytime that I did stay in the center of Canggu, it was overly crowded, and not only was there traffic, but there was also a lot of roosters and just a lot of noise and a lot of construction. If you are going out to Bali, I would recommend staying at least a 10-minute ride outside of the center of Canggu, just because it's a very loud experience, and I didn't really expect that going into it. The other thing is the stray dogs. So there is herds of stray dogs. Usually I would say you'll see 3 or 4 of them. And in my experience, they were pretty aggressive. So oftentimes if I wanted to walk to a cafe that was even 5 minutes away from my villa, I would encounter these dogs barking at me, and at night they roll in packs. I had some friends who had some horror stories of the dogs at night. So this pretty much made it almost impossible to walk around, because not only do you have the traffic, tons of scooters and cars, but now also adding the dogs to the equation. Being someone that loves to walk around the city, and I've spent a lot of time in Europe, this was a huge con for me and something that I didn't like, just because I felt like I wasn't as free mobily. The other thing was definitely price. Now, not that Bali is crazy expensive. However, I would say it's similar to what you'd pay in Portugal or Spain or Greece. It's not as cheap as it used to be, and most of the villas are going to cost you, I would say, at least $700 to $2,000 a month. So if you're going to Bali thinking oh, I'm going to live off of not so much money, if you're going to be in Canggu or EBooks, that's not really going to happen. And I was surprised at the cost of food. Most meals were costing me $10 to $12, and having just came from Thailand where I was spending $2 or $3, I was really shocked to see the difference in price. Now, the other thing that I wasn't a big fan of was definitely the level of manure and stuff that was in the water, especially in Canggu. So being someone that likes to surf, a lot of people get infections from the water, or people even get Bali belly. So it's really common to get sick from the food. And I had a couple times where I was feeling not super great. So this definitely made it to where it was something where I wouldn't necessarily want to live there, just because you're constantly having to worry about, am I going to get sick? And you're hearing about people getting sick and that type of thing. Now, there was 2 other experiences that I wasn't a huge fan of as well. And the first one happened in Nusa Penida. So where you see that beautiful picture of everyone in Bali, that's actually not in Canggu or even mainland Bali. It's on this island that's almost inhabitable because of the mountains and stuff there, and it doesn't have super great connection. But as soon as we arrived in Nusa Penida, immediately me and my friend were surrounded by 20 men and followed for like 5 minutes, and they were trying to get us to get into a taxi. This is something that I just experienced throughout Bali. People were constantly selling you things, trying to sell you something, and it never really shut off. I don't know if it's because I came from Thailand and Thailand was such a different experience, especially the people and how I was treated, but it was just a very aggressive a lot, and to a point where we finally, after 5 minutes, had to yell at them, tell them we are not taking a taxi, get away from us. And it was just very uncomfortable to be surrounded by 20 men. And if you're a female and you're watching this, I'm sure you can relate to how I was feeling. Now, the following day, also in Nusa Penida, it's common to, when you go to certain islands in Bali, you have to maybe pay a tax when you arrive. It's a few dollars, not really anything crazy. But we hadn't arrived. We had been staying the night there. And we woke up and our tour guide was probably, I would say, 300 feet ahead of us waiting. And we had walked out of our hotel, which was on the ocean. And immediately this guy grabs me like on my shoulders and he's like, "You need to pay me. You just arrived here, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." And I see out of the corner of my eye, my friend Becca and another guy grabs her. They're both holding us, demanding that we pay them. We're like, "Get off of us." Finally, they get off of us. We walk to the tour guide. We're both freaked out. Out of all of the countries I've traveled, I've been to about 30 countries in the past 3 years. I've never experienced something like that. And to be grabbed like that. And it was a very uncomfortable situation. The tour guide wasn't very understanding of it either. And this really put a really sour taste in my mouth about Bali and the whole experience as a whole. Now, I share all of this with you just because I think Bali is a nice place. However, I do think it's been portrayed as this utopia and this perfect location, and there's no issues. And I just wanted to give honest feedback on what I experienced and what I thought about the place. Now, I do think Bali is great if you were looking to go to like spiritual events and meet really interesting people, especially if you're a coach. Something that I did there, I went to like sex empowerment workshops and talks around like women empowerment, and this was really cool. And I think this is an advantage to being in Bali. Also, I think the co-working spaces are the best for digital nomads, like just such cool cafes and places that are built for people that work online. And I do think as a whole, spiritually, I really like the Balinese culture and what they have to offer as far as the temples and stuff. And that was definitely some highlights of the experience. However, due to the transportation situation, the dogs, and then also just feeling a bit uncomfortable with the overwhelming aggressiveness in general, that is why I wouldn't live in Bali and why I wouldn't make it my nomad base. However, I do invite you to go out, have your own experience. This is traveling. Everybody experiences different things. And I think that for some people, this may be a good fit. But if you really like the European lifestyle, you like walking around, you like kind of that freedom, Bali's probably not going to be the place where you're going to want to settle down. But I invite you to go out, make your own judgment, and definitely at least see Bali, because I do think it's a really beautiful location and it has a lot to offer. It just didn't have a lot to offer for me personally. So I hope you found this video helpful. And if you visit Bali and like it, put it in the comments below. Or if you visited Bali and you weren't a huge fan, put it in the comments below. I'd love to get some honest conversation talking about this place, just because I feel like there's just so much good and not so much honest about what you're actually walking into. So thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe. Bye.